We were about to grow up, grow old together. No storm that we can't weather. Ain't every day that you find the one that makes every day that you spend with a better. Sand will fall, time will fly, but baby, through it all, you and I are gonna stay young, stay gold forever while we grow up, grow old together.
Hey, John, we welcome you. And I'm looking forward to our conversation today. I think there's a lot of synchronicity here, and I'd love to have a great conversation.
Yeah, David, thanks for having me, man. A huge fan of you and obviously the brand. We've been working together for several months now, but this is the first time we've gotten to meet, so it's been long overdue.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, hey, you work in country music all the time. You're on tour, and hey, tell us a little bit about the fun that you get to have doing that.
Yeah, man. I'm from Georgia originally. I grew up in Northeast Georgia in a little mountain town, and didn't have a whole lot to do. So started playing music in church. Started out locally, just playing music in our little church, and did gospel and bluegrass, and then I really got into country music and kind of the songwriting part of things. And that's where it kind of all took off for me around, 13, 14. I started writing songs. They were all really bad, but they're still not that great, but they were really bad then. And I just fell in love with songwriting. I fell in love with performing and just everything that goes with it. So I knew through high school, I wanted to focus my career towards music. I didn't quite know where I wanted to go with it, or, if I wanted to, travel the world and sing and tour, or what I wanted to do yet, or if I just wanted to be a songwriter. So in college at University of Georgia, I took some music business courses. I really kind of got interested in the business side of music as well, and just kind of the whole nature, how it works from recording, to publishing and everything involved. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it all I got. So out of college, I went to Nashville, and I've been here now for 9 years, and touring. We've done all over the U.S., the upper 48, and hundreds and hundreds of shows over the past, 3-4 years. And it's been awesome, man. And getting to write songs for other artists as well, and having some of those songs be successful has kind of opened up doors for me to write and get my music out there in ways I never even thought I would. So it's been really cool, man. And then, it all kind of merged when you're a touring musician, you're living on the road, you're touring 200 something dates a year. You realize what you're putting into your body is super essential, because you're basically tuned like a professional athlete, to where it's like, if I'm eating fast food every night, I feel horrible and I sound really horrible that night on stage, So, the body is fuel. Food is fuel for the body. So it's like, how do I do a better job of taking care of myself? So I'd say right before COVID, we kind of started getting, into organic food, and started finding like organic sources, but it was really hard because we live in a rural area. So that's when I discovered you guys, David. And I realized if I can be a little more methodical with how we're touring and how we're preparing our food on tour, not only is it going to give me a longer, healthier life, but I'm going to perform better and I'm going to feel better. So that's kind of how the two worlds collided, in short.
Yeah, absolutely. Food is one of those things that makes a huge difference, no matter, what we're doing. But hey, I can't imagine the strain on the body and the emotion doing that many shows. Everyone, not only is it active, but, you have, there's a lot of responsibility there to turn out a good performance.
Yeah. I'm a high energy guy. Like, I love giving everything I have on stage, and I just kind of felt myself getting low on energy. I had a little bit of a health scare. I went in for a physical, and I was like, okay, I feel like it's around 30 when things start, like, kind of, you have to like really watch your blood work and stuff. When I was in my 20s, I would just eat whatever and just go crazy. And so when 30 hit, I'm like, okay, like, I've got 2 kids now. I've got to really start thinking about what I'm putting in my body, and not only my body, but, how I'm modeling for my children, and what we're feeding our kids. So it really became a priority to me. I've always been active. I've always loved exercise and being outdoors, and a lot of that stuff comes naturally. But I just didn't really think about the food I was putting in my body. I knew that vegetables are good for me, but I didn't think about what kind. I didn't think about organic and pesticides and all these things that you really need to think about. And so it's been eye-opening, and it's been amazing to see that there are companies out there like Azure that you guys can ship straight to anybody anywhere, no matter how in the middle of the wilderness we are, and we can get good clean food. So thank you for what you guys do.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and we're very, very happy that we're able to get the food to rural areas as well as urban areas.
Yeah.
But hey, the whole goal is about the health of family and children. And I look at the world today compared to even when I was young. Things like autoimmune disorders were almost unknown.
Wow.
50 years ago. And now almost everybody has it. It seems like, it's a huge amount of the population. Things like autism in children, I never heard of it.
Yeah.
And I guess statistically it was like 1 in 500. Now it's like 1 in 34. And then we wonder about, the additives that go into our food, the agricultural chemicals that go into our food, like, the glyphosates, the glyphosates and the pesticides and herbicides other than that as well. And then of course the inadequate nutrition that's in a lot of the food because of the widespread use of artificial and synthetic fertilizers that, fake the plant out so it has more volume than what it actually has nutrients. So it does make a big difference.
Yeah, David. I mean, it's been unbelievable to me to kind of get into that world and realize like what's on our food, not only what we're putting in our bodies, but what's on our food before it even gets to us. I mean, even what it's packaged in is a huge concern with plastics and what it does to hormone health and reproductive health and what our kids are going through. It really is. I think that it's the common denominator, like you touched on with autoimmune disease, with so many problems with chronic health issues. If we can just clean up this part of our lifestyle, I think it can open up a whole new world and a healthier country, a healthier family, under the roof. So I think what you're doing is amazing. And tell me, this is our first time talking, but tell me a little bit what inspired you to do this? What inspired you to take the business online and start? Because it's a unique setup. I mean, now there's a few companies that do this, but I think you guys are kind of pioneers in the way you do it, and it's really cool. I'd love to hear how you got into it.
Well, in a way, I got into it. In a way, I'm second generation now. That not the business itself, but the organic farming and lifestyle. So I was, when I was a very young baby, basically, I developed health issues that were beyond what the medical establishment knew how to deal with. They pretty much told my parents that I was probably not destined for a very long life. And whatever it was would be pretty much a medicated existence. And my parents didn't want to take that without getting another side of the story. So they did a lot of research, ended up finding a naturopath that was able to figure out what was the issue. And it was all diet related.
Wow.
So they changed my diet particularly, but as they did that, they changed the diet of our whole family. And not only did I recover, but everybody got healthier. And my grandfather, he was retired. He had heart trouble. He could barely function, couldn't even step a foot on a tractor. And so he started down that path as well, eating healthy. He started eating garlic and for his heart, but he changed his diet radically. And in a couple of years, he got well. And he was, he was actually, years later was killed in a tractor accident working 18 hours a day again in
Wow.
his 70s. And he had to retire in his late 50s because of his heart.
Wow.
So diet worked. So we realized that, my parents realized, hey, that there was something to this. And then, Dad got, convicted after looking at what was happening on the farm, that he wasn't, hey, if the farmer is the guardian of the nation's health, we're not doing a very good job.
Mhm.
And so he switched to organic farming in 73, which was a long time before it was hip and cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then for a few years, he actually sold all of our crops to Bob Moore from Bob's Red Mill. They knew each other, and then when they lost their organic contracts, that's when I started trying to peddle our product.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. I started, selling and driving little routes just locally at first, but that now is national and
Wow.
obviously at a much different scale.
That is awesome, man. What a testament to like the power of food. I mean, food is medicine, and how it like firsthand affected your family positively. And you saw like the healing benefits in yourself and your family. So yeah, I mean, that alone, I mean, it's we think about food sometimes. I think it's just like, we have to have it, like we eat it and it fuels our body, but it's so much more than that. It can be medicine. And so that's what I'm finding. And I'm finding that, like you said, everybody's diet's going to be different. Everybody's bodies requires, different nutrients. And, I've tried so many, I know you've probably done this too, but like gimmicky kind of the fad diets, I've tried keto and I've tried full plant-based and I've tried somewhere in the middle. And it's like, there's some balance somewhere. There's some balance that's perfect for everybody. I think it just takes a little bit of trial and error to kind of figure out what your body's trying to tell you it needs,
Well, as far as the diet, how much vegetarian versus carnivore and all of that, I think is very individual based on the microbiome that
Yes.
we have. A lot of that was, we got that from our mother too. I mean, it's not something that we necessarily chose. We can change it slightly over time, but a lot of that is what we got. But I will tell you one thing, there's no microbiome in the world that is set up for herbicides, pesticides, food chemicals, food coloring, preservatives, or highly processed food. That just, there's none, hey. And, and I think the more, maybe the more carnivore we are, probably the more important it is that we watch the source of our food.
Yeah.
Because secondhand chemicals are even more concentrated. Get away with a lot more in the vegetarian world.
Yeah.
But not everyone can eat vegetarian. The funny thing is, I learned that really early when I first got married, because I am pretty much a vegan.
Yeah.
And that is my microbiome. Not 100%, but pretty close. And I know that that's where I have to be. And that was part of the whole issue that I had when I was a child, because my microbiome was messed up.
Yeah.
Back then they called it severe allergic reactions, but that's not really what it was. It was, microbiome deficiencies. So when I got married, and my wife, I says, oh, we'll just eat that way. She says, I'm fine with that. And and she, 4 or 5 months in, she started getting sicker. She started developing rashes and various things. And what in the, if she didn't eat all that great before, she's eating better. And now, eating mostly organic, it's, whole foods. And she's developing these like rashes and even some anemic tendencies.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck's going on? Then we realized that her metabolism, she actually needs quite a bit of meat.
Wow.
She can't eat a vegetarian diet and get all the nutrients that she needs. So hence she's starting to get B vitamin deficiency,
Yep.
develop anemic type symptoms, and her body's reacting with, with rashes and stuff
Wow.
so we changed the diet, still organic and still clean and super clean. And of course, she got better really
Wow.
quick.
This is a topic I could talk to you about all day, David, because I went through a similar situation. I did 6 months on a completely vegan diet, like no meat at all, no processed, refined, no sugars, no nothing, super clean, whole foods diet. And I started getting like rashing, dry, patchy skin, and realized I was becoming anemic too. And when I got my blood work done, my iron levels were low, and I thought, oh man. And I'd been eating a lot of protein, in the form of like legumes and nuts.
Mhm.
So I was getting plenty of protein. I mean, just eating like crazy to get enough protein, but it wasn't absorbing. And so yeah, I started adding a little bit of like grass-fed meat, some wild caught fish, some things like that back in, and within weeks, like I felt totally better. So it's it can be, you have to kind of figure it out. And like, do you have any recommendations, David, on for people who are maybe trying to find their diet? Is there like gut biome testing, or do you just suggest like some trial and error, like a food diary? Like, what would you recommend for someone looking to do that?
Right now, I don't have a test. I've been looking into a few of them, but at this point, I can't really recommend one
Yeah.
that I feel like is um, that I trust the accuracy of.
Yeah.
Because but anyway, I think that there's a future in that. I really do, but I haven't, I don't.
Yeah.
Either we're not there yet, or I just haven't found the right one.
It'd be so convenient, it'd be so great if you could just, have a saliva sample or a blood sample that would tell you like, here's what your body likes, here's what it doesn't like, and here's what you need. But I've found the same thing to where it's a lot of trial and error, but I think it's worth it, and it's worth kind of keeping those food diaries and journals. That's what I've found helpful, at least so far.
So number one thing I would recommend is I always say start with a similar to diet than what you're on right now, only clean it up.
Yeah.
And maybe, hey, in my world, and even my parents, when they switched, they went 100%. They threw all their white sugar and flour out, and
Yeah.
they fed it to the chickens, and the chickens died. So that was
Oh no.
that actually made them real believers.
Yeah.
But, and we never basically ever had that in the house since.
Yeah.
It's been pretty purists.
Yeah.
But as far as the balance of our diet, then as far as whether we lean more plant-based, more animal-based, or what ratio works really well for us.
Yeah.
I think it's something, we can try and look at how we feel, because that is something that we will notice relatively quickly. You can try it for a week and see a difference.
That's yeah, totally. And you're right in the fact that there are certain things that really everybody needs to remove from their diets, no matter what, like, sugars and the processed foods. That's an easy thing to clean up. And honestly, I think it saves people money too. I mean, organic food can be, more expensive. It can be a little bit more, but when you're taking out the processed foods and the prepackaged meals, like those are expensive. So we kind of saw a little bit of a balancing in the budget too when we did that.
Well, if you're willing to cook at home, you can actually save money in the long run, especially buying in bulk, which is part of what Azure really does towards helping families. Hey, families, younger folks that are raising their families. If you ever had, 4 or 5 teenage boys at home, you know how much food that can be.
Oh.
And, and at the same time, it makes a huge difference on what they're eating and how well they're going to be able to perform.
Yeah.
School, athletics, all of those things that teenagers and young children even
Yeah.
are involved in. I mean, we're seeing, and that really is, one of the things that really motivates me every day is looking at especially the children that are having health issues today.
Yeah.
Diabetes before they're even in their teens.
Yeah.
We're talking, not to mention obesity and other health issues that come up. And, most of that is relatively simple. And, looking at it, just in my own experience, my wife and I, we ended up over our many years, we ended up having 11 children.
Wow.
And
that is a job right there, my friend.
yeah, no, she did. She's awesome. And but the fun thing is, we both grew up kind of sickly, to tell you the truth. But with our children, because we made that conscious decision before any of them were ever born to focus on clean living as far as health and exercise and that kind of, I mean, they got kicked outdoors. We're not into letting them sit around in the house in the summertime.
Yeah.
We ended up raising 11 children, and we look back on it, and other than one broken femur, we never had one of our children ever see a doctor while they were in our house.
Wow.
It went that radical. And hey, it's not that we wouldn't have if something would have come up. I mean, obviously my wife does home remedies, and she's not going to rush them to the doctor for the first, flu or anything that comes along, or the whooping cough or something.
Mm-hmm.
But, it was never needed. And I think that's a huge, and if I look at it the same, hey, we were both, from a genetic standpoint, neither one of them, us, are the slightest bit athletic. I mean, not that we're, cripples or anything, but, hey, never even went there in the slightest. And I ended up having a couple of kids that ended up high-level college athletes. But
Right.
I think it's not because of their genetics. It was because they had an unfair advantage with their health. They could run a little bit longer than the other kids because their body had the right fuel, and they already had the muscle makeup and stuff for that. So they had a little more endurance, and were able to perform quite well.
So when you talk about, David, like, we've touched on clean food is essential, whole foods, organic foods. Like, what are some of your other essentials? Like, for, you talk about abundant living, like for your kids, for your family, what are some of the other things you guys did? I mean, was it supplementation? Was it, herbs? Like, what are some of your other favorite things to include?
Now, we do some supplementation and some herbs, but not that terribly much as far as, hey, my wife always supplements them up a little bit when there's colds or something going around. So little immune boosters and, some echinacea and GSE and things like that. But no, we were never really super big into supplements. That was, not high on the priority list. I think that health is really, it's kind of a three-pillared thing, and food is one of them. Clean food, knowing what your body, working with your body, and keeping, the chemicals out and the nutrient dense, enough nutrients that we need, and a balance of nutrients. It's all about that. So food is one of them, and that's kind of all we've talked about so far.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Azure lives in every day. That's what I live in. But there's two others, in my opinion, that are just as important. And the other one is movement and exercise. Hey, and it's not like it has to be radical. I mean, you don't have to run 10 miles a day. Maybe even if you're, even walking 3 or 4 miles a day can make a difference. But a sedentary lifestyle, um, and especially with children, and it's not necessarily, again, that they have to run 10 miles a day, although some of mine did. Uh, uh, but it's about, you know, maybe for lack of a better term, they're being rough, rambunctious kids, hey, and when they're younger, I mean, they're just running around the yard playing tag. They get a little older and it's volleyball and ultimate frisbee or whatever, it's hiking in the woods. It's doing all this, all this normal, healthy stuff that kids should do. And, and as adults, I think that's another important thing, is that we're active. And then the third thing, and I think, again, it's just as important as food, and that is our mental and spiritual outlook.
Mhm.
And that is where abundance actually comes into play even more. Hey, abundance, yes, we have abundance in our food, abundance of nutrients, not necessarily an abundance of food in the sense of, overeating or something,
Right.
but abundance of our nutrient profile, health, abundance of just activity and enjoying the outdoors and life the way it should be lived, but abundance in our attitudes, in our mental and spiritual state. Do we have an abundance in our relationships? Do we have relationships that are meaningful? Do we have a positive outlook? Are we seeing, that we are making a difference in the world? Do we have a purpose in our life? Is there
Yeah.
something that we're doing that's worth doing? Do we enjoy what we do? Are we living in drudgery? Can we learn to enjoy what we do? Because if, it's either one or the other. Either we're destroying ourselves or we learn to enjoy what we're doing. And, in a way, that was a lesson I had to learn very young in life. You can enjoy doing things maybe that weren't the top of your list sometimes. And
Wow.
the more you do it and the better you get at it, the more enjoyable it becomes. Kind of like you as a musician. Imagine the first time you picked up a guitar, it was kind of sore fingers and it didn't sound really very good, and maybe it wasn't even all that much fun, that first couple weeks of guitar lessons or however you did it, maybe just picking it up, wasn't even all that fun. But then once you got to start, making music, it got to be a lot more fun. And I think if we always stay in that beginning stage, with our attitude, maybe, even if it's a long time, you talk to so many people, they hate their job, they hate their, they're not getting along with their wife, everything's in the doldrums. That has a extreme effect on our health and our vibration in the world. So hey, do what you can to fix those things. Hang around people that share your values, that you enjoy being around, ideally that are, so you're not always the smartest person in the room or the most talented person in the room. And it pulls you up, and that creates a world of abundance instead of a world of scarcity. And it does that in every way. If we're doing that, it does it, in health, it does it financially, and it does it in our fullness of life, in our relationships, and the way that we live life.
That is well put, David. That's well put. Yeah, I mean, you're so right. That third pillar, I think, is the one that gets forgotten a lot, because we talk about food, we talk about exercise, like those, that's simple, right? Like, sure, like easier said than done, but it's something we can change right now, today, easily. Like, we could go out and buy organic food from Azure. We could get on the treadmill. We could go lift weights. We can do that. Like, we can do that instantly. But the mental connection, the mind-body connection is something, and this is really just something I've discovered over the last 2 or 3 years. I used to think of them as separate entities, the mind and the body, but they're so interconnected and are so, it's such a deep rooted connection that you're right. Like your emotional state, how you feel, the people you're around, what you're absorbing has such a direct effect on how your body responds and how you're feeling, how you're physically feeling. So I think we have to really be conscious of that, and I know there's a lot of ways we could have a whole nother podcast about that, but like some quick things for me, like meditation's been great, prayer, meditation, even just spending time, like you said, with people you love, with your spouse, and, having a conversation, a real conversation without any screens, and just really tuning in one-to-one, or a conversation like this that, lifts you up intellectually. I'm getting lifted up to you're carrying the weight today, but I'm learning so much from you. It's like, this is the kind of stuff that stimulates us and makes us healthier. So I love what you said about that, David. That is very insightful.
Well, and in many ways, what you do, hey, you're a musician. That, what is the purpose of music?
Yeah.
In my mind, hey, so I work over here on the food side, more tangible. You work a little bit more on the spiritual, emotional side.
Yeah.
What is music for? Hey, if you're feeling down, put on put on some good music.
Yeah.
That's just, it's a lot of people's go-to.
That was something I never really, I think I took that for granted for years. That, I've always loved music, but I always just thought, music, we're out here having fun. We're not saving the world, but we're putting smiles on people's faces. But the older I get and the more I realize that mind-body connection, I realize that music really it's like medicine for people. It can be healing for people. It can turn a bad day upside down quickly, So I think it really does have an impact, on everybody, no matter what. There's something about that vibration, that sound, something when it just hits you right and it hits you, in your heart. It is a special thing. So that's something that's really kind of, given me new life and a way to look at my career and be very grateful that I get to do that. So it really is. It's something that I'm grateful for every day.
Yeah, and it sounds like it sounds like you've got some great songs. They sent over a couple links that I listened to. It's kind of pretty fun. Maybe somebody'd like to listen to a little bit of the
Maybe we can lift somebody's day up today. Yeah, I've got a new song I'd love to play for you guys. It's called Grow Up, Grow Old. And, we've been talking about family a lot. We've been talking about healthy living. To me, like my family is just the absolute joy of my life. And I've got 2 girls. I'm not up to 11 yet, David. I don't know if I'll take maybe 3, 4 if things get crazy. But I think, that's as a father, like it's really just given my whole life a new purpose, and I love my girls. So this is a song I wrote for my wife and my daughters. So yeah, I hope it brings somebody some joy. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Pictures on the dashboard of my truck. Nervous every time I pick you up. Just a kid without a clue took one look at you. And if you know and you know, baby, I knew. We were about to grow up, grow old together. No storm that we can't weather. Ain't every day that you find the one that makes every day that you spend with a better. Sand will fall, time will fly, but baby, through it all, you and I are gonna stay young, stay gold forever while we grow up, grow old together. We're somewhere between carved hearts on an evergreen, in a gray rocking chair, sunset scene. Girl, I love where we're at, and I'm looking forward to looking back. Who knows who we're gonna be? I can't wait to see. As we grow up, grow old together. No storm that we can't weather. Ain't every day that you find the one that makes every day that you spend with them better. Say no falls, time will fly, but baby, through it all, you and I are gonna stay young, stay gold forever while we grow up, grow together. Yeah. Every morning waking up with you, I thank the Lord we got a lifetime to grow up, grow old together. No storm that we can't weather. Ain't every day that you find the one that makes every day that you spend with them better. Say no fall, time will fly, but baby, through it all, you and I are gonna stay young, stay gold forever while we grow up, grow together. Grow up, grow together. Grow up, grow together. Yeah. Woo.
If you're like traveling all the time, I suppose maybe it makes it difficult to like grow a garden or anything like that, or do you still find time to connect to the soil a little bit?
Well, so this is actually an area I wanted to talk to you about, David, because I know I'm on the podcast with an expert here. We've been in the Nashville area, the rural kind of south of Nashville for years now. We don't have a great place for a garden here, but I just purchased a piece of land in Georgia, which is close to where I grew up. My wife grew up. And our really main focus with this piece of land is eventually we'd like to have our family home there, and we want to have a garden. It's on 15 acres. It's a beautiful piece of property in the mountains. So, yeah, I mean, give me like your homesteader 101. Like, what do we need on the property? What are some of your recommendations for having a garden and be able to grow some of that food on your own?
Well, I mean, you should be able to have a garden on any place unless it's solid rocks, and then you may have to do raised beds or something else. I don't know that I've ever really been to the mountains of Georgia. I drove through the southern part of Georgia.
It's
and
beautiful.
It was a lot of pine trees down there, as I recall.
Yeah, the north part, it's Appalachian foothills, so it's Appalachian Mountains, really thick hardwood forest. And in good soil, kind of that red clay. You got good topsoil, a lot of creeks and a lot of water sources. So I would, contribute, like if you've ever been to Virginia or North Carolina, those same mountains, it's kind of that same look. And it starts in the northern part of Georgia. So
beautiful.
I think it'll be some good fertile ground for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you have good fertile ground to start with, that's a big plus. And then just, hey, lay out your area. There's nothing like, and there's a lot of different gardening methods, just kind of like there are a lot of different ways, to eat, even though it's still healthy. Some people mulch, some people till, sometimes different peoples have different ideas. They claim that the other ones are no good. No, don't pay attention to that. Mulching is great, but you have to have a good source of mulch, and you have to be able to continually renew that. If you don't have that, tillage is fine, as long as you're not overdoing it. But tilling it up every spring and doing a cover crop and tilling it down and that kind of thing is a great way to get going. Clay soils, you mentioned that it's more of a clay soil.
Yeah.
Clay soils tend to be hold the nutrients a lot longer than sandy soils. So not only, they take a lot longer to destroy, but they also take a little bit more work to build back once they've been run down. Wow. That was one of the things about those clay soils down there on the East Coast. they grew cotton year after year after year for 100 years on some of those soils before they destroyed them, without rotating their crops and taking care of it. The soil had a lot in it, but once it went down, then they didn't really, some of those soils never recovered. They can. I believe that all those soils could be recovered, but they don't even use a lot of those farms. They let them grow back to pine trees or whatever, because they didn't want to go to the work of the recovery of the soil. So when you're talking about clay soils, one of the big things is getting your humus content up. You want organic matter in the soil. So things like compost are very important in those soils. And you're going to have to, do it for a little bit longer period of time than a sandy soil. It's going to react a little bit slower. But once you get them built up, they are the best. They will give you what a sandy soil never will. Man. So
I'm excited, David. That's I know you could probably talk all day about this topic, and it's I'm beginner stages, but my grandmother, I think of my grandmother, my great grandmother had a garden, and she worked in that garden every day, and she lived to be 98. Her mental clarity was so awesome. I mean, she was in great physical health, hardly ever had to go to the doctor for anything, and lived healthy and happy life all the way till she was 98. And I look back on her life and I think, what's the common denominator? She ate whole foods. She was very dedicated to prayer, and had a good circle of friends and family around her. And she had a huge garden that she loved to work in. Her hands were in the soil. So that to me is kind of like, okay, that's what that's the Mecca for me. That's what I'm chasing.
There you go. There's nothing like it. Even if it's something you can only do on weekends, so to speak. There's still nothing quite like connecting with the soil, connecting with the land, and eating the product that you raised from your own soil. I mean, and with 15 acres, you might be able to actually even include a few animals into that cycle.
We've talked about maybe getting, maybe some chickens or something to start with, just something kind of simple. And then you could have a cow on there. You could have something like that. But what would year one, David, like what would be your recommendations for starting out like new gardeners, and not just me, but for anybody? Like say you've got your garden, you've done some research on your soil, you've got your area picked out. What are some crops that you would start out with that are just kind of easy to get your feet wet?
Well, if we're talking to people all across the country, that varies based on your location. I mean, down there in Georgia, obviously, more of the warm weather crops are going to do better. It's going to be easier for you to raise a watermelon, maybe than a Swiss chard or something, unless you're doing that in the winter. Whereas up north, it might be a pretty big challenge to even raise a watermelon. I mean, we can raise them here pretty well, but the trouble with watermelon here is they're getting ripe right as the weather's starting to cool off, and you don't want them quite so bad.
That's a good point. Yeah, watermelon's like a summer. You want that on 4th of July, right?
You want watermelon in July and August, when it's hot. And here they get ripe about the end of August, raise beautiful watermelon, but always, a day late. A big old 18-pounder, and it's like, well, wear a jacket later.
That's amazing, man. Yeah, you're right. I mean, climate, and your location is going to have a lot to do with it. So warm weather crops do a little bit better in the South, whereas your leafy greens, like if you want to do leafy greens, because I eat a ton of leafy greens. So is that more of a cold weather crop?
They are, for the most part, they're cooler weather crops. There are a few like lettuces. We carry one lettuce seed, and I believe we also have the start called Michelle lettuce. That's more of a southern. It's a slow bolt, but you still have to rotate plant it. It's not going to last real long, so you're going to have to plant it about every 3 or 4 weeks. Or maybe even a little closer when it's really hot. At least a couple times that I've been to Georgia, it's been pretty warm.
Yeah, it can get hot. It can get hot. You know, we are in the mountains, so we've got a couple thousand feet of elevation, which is nice, which cools it a little bit. But yeah, your summertime still pretty miserable, in the deep south with the humidity. But the payoff is you get really beautiful falls, like autumn right now in Tennessee, Georgia, gorgeous, and we still have 55, 60-degree days, so you can kind of extend that season, right? Extend that season and have a really up until a hard freeze comes in late November, sometimes early December. So that's a nice.
Yeah, so you could be raising those, if you learn your plant timing. Again, I mean, I can tell you for Oregon, but not for Georgia per se. Your timing, so you plant your greens, say in August or the first part of September, and then they'll supply you greens all fall long. And some of the greens you might be able to completely winter over. It may not freeze hard enough, like kales, for instance. Kales will take a fair amount of frost before you even have to worry about it. You can also raise like fall things like carrots and beets in the fall.
Yeah.
Plant them like in, August or late August, early September. And then, unless it's really getting nasty, a lot of times you can leave those right in the ground and just harvest them all winter long as you're and into the early spring.
It's so cool, David. I've got to sign up. We got to get you going with a gardening course. I want to be the first. I'm going to sign up. This is so interesting, man, and just your wealth of knowledge, like on this topic, for someone who's just getting into this world is amazing. But thank you again, dude, for having me and for. I've learned a lot just on this podcast, but I'm just an advocate for the brand and for everything you guys stand for. And I got a fun couple questions I want to ask before, because I know I've held you over a long time today, but we talked about this when we first started before the podcast went live. But so you kind of come from a musical background too. Like we have a little bit of a common love for music. Tell everybody kind of what you started out with, what you were telling me before we started.
Oh yeah. Well, my mom was actually a musician and a music major. So, at the very early, we always had a lot of music in the house, with her dad, not so much, but she was quite the musician. She's one of those, hey, I could hit any note on the piano keyboard and she's clear across the room and she could tell me what note it was.
Wow.
So kind of,
yeah,
that was mom. And so we grew up a little bit, playing music. And so, later when we, I guess, got all younger or mid-teenagers, we started this little family band. And so we actually traveled around the country. We did some, what back then it was like patriotic music. Trying to think of some of the like country type songs we did. We even did the song back then that became Trump's God Bless the USA.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We used to sing that.
That's awesome, man. So yeah, I know. So patriotic. So was it more kind of like in a bluegrass style or like a?
Yeah, it was kind of a bluegrass country style. We had, my sister played the banjo and mandolin, and I did the guitar. My mom did the piano, and my brother did the bass. We had one of those big upright bass fiddle type things like you'd see more in bluegrass style. But
you guys were like a Northwestern country bluegrass band, dude. This is awesome.
I guess kind of, but yeah, and we traveled around. We did a lot of like family camps and stuff like that. We'd go to like family camps and we were like but hey, we never really did a recording. We never did anything like that.
That's cool though, man. What a cool, but to share that time with your family, and have all those memories. And we're kindred spirits in that way. My mom played piano. She's the reason I got into music. She actually played in our church choir, and she read, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's a style of music that's only in like the old hymnals. It's called the sacred harp. And it's shape reading. So like each note is dictated by a different shape. And it's really kind of a long lost art of reading music. It's not like treble and bass clef. It's a different style. And so mom only knew how to do that. So when I wanted to start reading music and playing more like mainstream, country or rock or pop songs, she couldn't help me. Like all she knew was the old hymnals. So I would have to pick out what note she was playing on the piano and match it with the guitar and be like, oh, okay, that's a C, or that's a G or whatever. It's not a triangle or a square or whatever. So it was honestly like learning two different languages and trying to translate. But that was some of the best memories we had, like with me and my mom. And my brother went on to be my drummer and is still my drummer to this day.
Oh, okay.
And has been with me, all over the country. So I love the family band, man. It's a real fun adventure to have together.
and then when I was in high school, I did this little cutoff. So there were 4 of us guys got together and we did this little band. We called it the Tie Ridge Boys.
Cool.
So here in Oregon, there's a Tie Ridge is kind of a famous landmark, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was pretty much all country songs because we did all Oak Ridge Boys stuff, right?
I'd love that, man.
It's like, because that was real popular back then. I'm dating myself, but we're talking, 70s-ish. And
yeah.
So, yeah, it was like, Elvira and Bobby Sue and all those.
Those are good ones, man.
And it was pretty popular. We got a lot of invitations all around. We played a lot at the ski lodges and stuff like that.
That is so cool, David. So yeah, you're just a man of many talents. I'm blown away.
But then, once I started having, once I got Azure going and started having a family, music, just became for fun.
Yeah.
No time to travel and do that. Hey, it's a choice you got to make. And
there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. For me, over the last few years, we travel with our RV and we take our kids with us, and we kind of made it like a family adventure where our girls are homeschooled. Our 6-year-old is our 2-year-old's still young, so it's fun for them to get to travel the country and meet new people and experience all these things. And so I like to think we're giving them an education that they'll appreciate one day, that they've kind of gotten to see. I mean, this year we've got to go to, I think we went to 10 national parks this year. So
nice.
when we're on the road, like we're trying to soak in all this beauty and meet people and from different walks of life. So it's Azure has been very helpful with that too, because we find ourselves out on tour or on the road, and it's like we're in food deserts, like where we can't. So I can hit up a drop, grab a shipment at a drop, and then we can restock. So it's really been a godsend for us on the road.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
that's great to hear. Yeah, it's a great, it's a great thing. And I think there's the music to psychology or spiritual aspect of music. I think there's nothing quite like it.
Yeah, it's a great fusion of worlds between when you see, if you can get the food part right, we can get the movement part right. And then if we can get our spiritual part right, music helps, being surrounded by people you love helps. So I'm glad to play a teeny part in that, hopefully in some people's lives, and also to just connect with great people like you, David, and the team there who have been just open arms, welcomed me like family, and answered so many questions. I'm going to hit you up, and I want a one-on-one session on some gardening tips in the future. So that's my.
Well, hey, next time you're out here in Oregon, we can go, get our hands dirty a little bit, and I'll invite you over to the garden.
I'm in. Okay, put me down.
I don't know if you ever tour the Northwest.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we love Oregon, man. We do a lot of shows. We did several shows this year. So yeah, next year, probably around the summertime is usually when we get out that way for our kind of Northwest and West Coast tour. I'm gonna hit you up and we'll come shoot some content out there, and you can teach me about the crops.
Yeah, sounds like fun.